Reserve Bank of India Act 1934. In our economic, business and commercial laws, this is one of the chapters which is very important not only for exam but for you to understand what is this economic, business, commercial laws. See, as a student of company secretary course, why should you study economic, business and commercial laws? In our economic, business, commercial laws, it has all the applicable laws for the corporates in India. In company law, you study mainly the Companies Act of 2013 and the rules, the regulations, the case laws, and that is the core. But in economic, business, commercial laws, we have Foreign Exchange Management Act, FEMA in the first part, then we have Competition Act, and then we have the other laws like our Contract Act and many other economic laws including Real Estate Regulation Act and all of that. This subject is one of the biggest which you have in the entire CS executive in terms of the syllabus and how vast it is. So the first chapter is our Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, and what this chapter covers mainly is the overview. We have already studied in +2 or our degree level that Reserve Bank is the Supreme Bank of India and it has the power of being banker to the banks. So how we have our own bank, we may go to State Bank of India, HDFC, Axis, ICI. These banks also need a banker and Reserve Bank of India is their banker. So RBI is the main regulator for all the banking functions and generally lot of the monetary and policy decisions of the government. Please remember that Reserve Bank of India is a separate company and it is having a separate act, the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, and nobody can interfere in the functioning of the Reserve Bank of India. So first question you should ask yourself is, as a student of company secretary course, why should I study this or how is it relevant? If you understand this, everything else in this act becomes very easy for you. So the first thing about why you should study this is, please understand that all the things of FEMA, we have RBI and RBI regulations which come into picture. So if you know what is Reserve Bank, how Reserve Bank functions, you will get a clear picture. So what is covered in this chapter? Mainly, initially is the basics. What is the Reserve Bank? History of Reserve Bank, when it was started, why do we need a Central Bank of India, which is the Reserve Bank of India, what are its functions, means what are its jobs. So when you know the overview, the bird's eye view about Reserve Bank of India, everything else becomes easy for you. So once we finish that, we study the specific things like what is the central board of the Reserve Bank, who is the governor. Governor is the main person who is in charge for all the operations. So how a governor is appointed, what is the duration of the governor. You may think, how is this helpful for me if I become a company secretary? This is the background knowledge and information which you should have to conduct your duties as a company secretary. You might not end up working in Reserve Bank, but there will be lot of things you have to deal with Reserve Bank. Nowadays, lot of companies have foreign investment, what we call as FDI. And for all these companies, we have to report to Reserve Bank of India through our AD banker, that is whoever bank is there, through them we have to go to Reserve Bank. So like this, in your job of company secretary, there are multiple times where you have to deal with the Reserve Bank of India, and that is why you should know this chapter. As I was telling you, Reserve Bank is the main regulator for all the economic activities for all the companies, whether it is FEMA, whether it is non-banking financial companies, or even something as simple as what the currency notes you and me use. So even from printing the currency notes to how much to print and what are the procedures relating to that, everything is conducted by Reserve Bank and you have to know this, and that is why we have this. And apart from that, you should know what is the monetary policies. You might have read the newspaper, things like repo rate and all the other rates which Reserve Bank will slash. So whether it is your interest rate in the bank, whether it is your home loan interest, everything depends on the policy of the Reserve Bank of India. And this knowledge is required for you to conduct your activities as a company secretary in the best way possible. So that is the reason this is the first chapter which you have, Reserve Bank of India 1934. So in this chapter we have everything from history of Reserve Bank And what is interesting is Reserve Bank was not one of the government banks. It was a private shareholders bank which started. Of course, we'll study that in detail. Later, it became the Bank of India. So that is why we need to know this very, very well. And please remember that not only we study history, we also study the primary basic functions, then what is the policies, and also things like the latest things like the payments and settlement system. So payment and settlement system is very important. You know very well our NEFT, RTGS, and all your other online payments which you do, all that is enabled and also regulated by Reserve Bank. So Reserve Bank on one hand is the banker to all the banks, and more importantly it is the regulator for the entire economic activities, not only to other banks but also the economy. If Reserve Bank has very bad policies, it will affect each and every person's life, it will affect each and every person's business and all other functions of the government. That is why Reserve Bank of India should be very, very careful in giving out the rules, regulations and the policies. And also for things like NBFCs, Reserve Bank is the main regulator. Whether you want to register it, whether you want to close it, for everything Reserve Bank comes. Even for companies, for foreign exchange, whether it is import, export, we need the rules and regulations of Reserve Bank. Since it's such an important piece of legislation, the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934 is a general knowledge which you have to have if you want to understand economic, business, commercial laws. Just like you should know basic English to learn anything in any course, whether it is school or +2 or degree or CS or CA or any course like that. Same way, the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934 is the general knowledge you should know, and the bird's eye view, the big picture you should know to understand all the other economic laws. And let me tell you, the RBI Act is directly and indirectly connected to all the acts you have, whether it is FEMA, whether it is NBFC related, the Competition Act, whether it is our economic laws, correct? All this is directly related to Reserve Bank, and that is why you should know this. So that is a brief overview. Now if you understand this basic overview, you will understand the specific functions and all the other things like who is the board, how to elect the board, what is their tenure, etc. I will tell you. So now let us study each and every page of Reserve Bank of India Act 1934 in detail so that you do well in the exams. This is our economic, business and commercial laws, and we are studying first the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934. So when we study our economic, business, commercial laws, as you know that we have the first part which talks about the Reserve Bank of India and the Foreign Exchange Management Act, or what we call Exchange Control Regulations. This is very crucial, especially for a company secretary in the 21st century. Yes, our profession is highly respected, and that is why we have to know the Reserve Bank of India Act and Foreign Exchange Management Act very, very well. This becomes crucial for us. Let us have a look at the introduction, where it is a very, very introductory chapter which is very easy, which gives you the overview. So first you should know what is the framework in which we are studying. We are studying everything related to India and the Foreign Exchange Management Act of India. But to study that, first we should know the primary bank, which is the Central Bank of India, which is our Reserve Bank of India. And for this, the law relating to Reserve Bank of India is the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934. It is the Central Bank of India, we know very well. It was established in 1934. What is very interesting is, when it first started, it was a normal shareholders bank. So we had private shareholders, and only then it was nationalized. Of course, we'll come to that, but this is what you should know. Many students or many people only will not know. Yes, it was nationalized and it became the Central Bank of India, but it was like any other bank before that. And the act is the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, and the headquarters is in Maharashtra, we know that. So presently, we have Mr. Shaktikant Das, who is the governor of the Reserve Bank. See, there are many people in the Reserve Bank, but usually everything relating to the publicity is relating to the governor. So governor's duration is anywhere based on what the government of India will give them the tenure. So previously we had Raghuram Rajan. So Mr. Raghuram Rajan, economist, he was there for 3 years. Then he had to give way to our Shaktikanta Das. So it has 26 offices and 4 regional offices and different cities. All these are general things which we have to know. Now what Reserve Bank does is it acts as bankers' bank. So whatever banks we have, whether we have State Bank of India, whether we have HDFC, whether we have our Bank of Baroda, whatever, any bank, we need to know that they have to go to the Reserve Bank of India because RBI is the bankers' bank. So what does it do primarily? It regulates and makes policy. See, this is very important. Policy depends on what the other banks have to do. So it gives the overall framework. We can say that when you say policy, overall framework, what the bank can do, what the bank cannot do. For entire India, we have RBI, which gives us the overall picture. See, these some basic things you may already know, correct? But we need to study this in detail. We always say that Reserve Bank is the organ of the government. So it is part of the government and we should know this. So when we say Government of India, we say Reserve Bank is one of the organs of the government. Of course, it is independent and there is a government machinery working under it. But we say that it's organ of the government and which participates in the financial markets in different ways. And one primary thing which all of us know is that currency notes. RBI issues currency notes and only RBI. There is no other bank which can issue our currency notes. So whether it is our 100 rupee note, whether it is our 500 rupee note, now we have 2000 rupee note. So all this comes under the Reserve Bank of India. Nobody else can print. So they have a printing section. So they print the notes. Coincidentally, the printing section is in the city of Mysore in India and no other bank can do it. Now we'll know a little bit of history or how this whole thing came. So it was the recommendation of the Hilton Young Commission. So they told we need to have one bank which is called the Reserve Bank. And it was started as a shareholder bank. I told you earlier, no? So it had 5 crore capital. At that time, it's a very big amount. When we are looking at almost 85 years old, it's a very, very big amount. And they started as a shareholders bank. Primarily, it was in Kolkata. Also, our capital was Kolkata. Only later it became Delhi, correct? In British East India time, Kolkata was the capital. They used to call it Calcutta. Then in Mumbai, it was moved in 1937. Mumbai has always been our financial capital right from history. Initially, it was privately owned and the government had a nominal share of 2,20,000. So as I told you, it was nationalized only in 1949. So till then, it was a private bank. It seems little new, right? Now we may feel, what, Reserve Bank was private bank? Yeah, you should know all this. That is why we study history. Many people tell, why should we know history when we study law? But in every class I do, I always put history. Because history, whatever we are today, whether it is our society, whether it is our economy, anything, it is because of history. And we have to know little bit of history even. And also, forget everything. To understand properly, history helps a lot. I have seen it personally. That is why if you know history, you'll understand very easily. So it was fully owned by the Government of India from 1949. So let us look at the banking history. So we have the Imperial Bank, which came into existence 27th of Jan 1921 by the Imperial Bank of India Act 1920. It was established by the amalgamation of the Presidency Bank back then. We need to know that it was the biggest bank till 1935. And Reserve Bank of India was very much required, and that is why in 1935 we have the Reserve Bank of India. And please remember that initially it was a commercial bank. Okay. Now it acted as the sole banker to the government. In the first half of the 19th century, 3 Presidency Bank was started in Madras, Bombay and Bengal. So these are the three presidency banks. This is all this we need to know. It is before Reserve Bank of India. Okay. Towards the end of 19th century, the cash balance of the government kept in the treasuries had the connections with the presidency bank, and this is how the system was running that time. This is, again I'm telling you, before RBI. Let's look at the organization structure and the management of our Reserve Bank of India. You may be thinking, will they ask in exam? See, for us, to understand some concepts, we should know how the entire system works. They might not ask a direct question in exam. What is organization structure and management of RBI? They don't ask like that. But to know this, it will help you to understand other concepts. So if you know this, you'll understand other concepts. So everyone thinks the governor is the first person. No. In Central Board of Directors, this is the highest authority in our Reserve Bank of India. And this is the Central Board of Directors. So as you can see, they are the highest authority. Next we have the governor, and below the governor we have the deputy governor, and they are 4 people in number. So as you can see, there are 4 deputy governors. Then we have the executive directors, and they are 10 in number. So as you can see, we have 1 governor, but more importantly, the Central Board of Directors are the highest authority. Next we have the principal chief general manager, who is below this executive directors. This is important for us to understand. Then we have the chief general managers. Below that we have general managers. They are many in number, deputy general managers, and the assistant general manager. So as you can see, from our Central Board of Directors, which starts here, we have gone all the way to assistant general manager. This is the hierarchy. So if you are working in RBI, you will basically have assistant general manager, you will move up. Below that also, if you see, we have the managers, the assistant managers, and the support staff. So this is the hierarchy. The highest authority or the boss is our governor. Of course, he has to report to the Central Board of Directors. This is the organization structure and how RBI is managed. General Board of Directors. So please try to understand, this is the Central Board of Directors. We also call it them as the General Board of Directors. That is the highest power. If you ask about this, we have Government of India. That is true. But we say that RBI is independent and they should not really listen to what the government says. They have to do what is right as per their understanding. So in the Central Board of Directors, we have already understood that it is the highest authority. And in our Reserve Bank of India, we need to look at this authority as the highest. So it delegates some functions to the local board and the various committees which are there, but they are the highest authority. Governor is the Reserve Bank's chief executive. How company has chief executive officer, CEO, for Reserve Bank of India, we call that as the RBI governor. And RBI governor has to have very good knowledge about the economy and also the world economy. So that is why they used to say that it is best if any great economics teacher or economist becomes the RBI governor. So what do the governor do? Mainly they will supervise and direct the affairs of the business of RBI. So whatever RBI does, our governor, who acts like the CEO, we don't call CEO, we call them governor, but indirectly his role, how company, see in every company, CEO is the highest role, because how the company executes, it depends on the CEO's job, correct? Same way in our RBI, we have the RBI governor who has to do his job properly. If he does his job properly, then it becomes very, very easy for RBI to function properly. The management term also includes the deputy governor and the executive directors, and this we have already studied. The central government nominates 14 directors on the central board. So what is this central board which we have? We have 14 directors which the central government of India will nominate, and the government also nominates government officer as the director representing the government. So one government officer will be there. The governor and deputy governors devote their whole time. See, this is important. This is the most important. They have been given salary allowance. It is a full-time job. If you want to be RBI governor, it is not a part-time job. It is a full-time job. You have to run the economy. It is equal to being Prime Minister of India, to run India, to run all the economic affairs, banks of India. Reserve Bank governor is the highest authority, and to help him we have the deputy governors collectively. See, if you remember, India had demonetization where they cancelled our 500 rupee old and 1000 rupee old notes. Now it is not anymore. But to execute this properly, it was important that the RBI governor is aware and also doing the job properly. So we have a deputy governor authorized by him in this behalf in writing who may vote for him at that meeting. So this is very, very crucial. A director nominated holds the office for a period of 4 years, and thereafter his successor is nominated. So whoever is director in our central board of directors, so we are studying now central board of directors, they will have for 4 years period. Please understand that no act or proceeding of the board can be questioned. So we cannot question merely where there is any vacancy or any defect in the constitution of the board. What the board is decided is always final. Of course, the governor is the full-time person, but what board decides is final. Retiring director can be eligible for re-nomination. So he can be re-nominated, and this is possible. Yes. Local board of RBI. So as we understood, RBI has 4 local boards, and this board is for every region of India. So we have our north, south and east and west, correct? So we have western, eastern, northern and southern areas of the country. And since India is such a huge country, we need the local boards to function properly. And that is our Mumbai, Kolkata, New Delhi and Chennai for the south region. Members appointed by the central government are for 4 years. So we should know that it is 4 years appointment, and local board shall elect amongst themselves one of the chairperson of the board. So what we have these 4 local boards, they have to appoint their chairman among the members who are there. And whoever is there, they have 4 years period as per the Reserve Bank of India Act. Please don't forget, as we are studying Reserve Bank of India Act, RBI Act. And also it is best as you study in video class, please make your own notes. Otherwise, it may seem that how many points are there, how do we remember? So try to understand overall, as you know. See, I'll just quickly give you a recap what we have done so far. So if you see that time it will be easy. So when you make points also, first is Reserve Bank of India Act, that is the thing. I gave you the introduction, and after introduction we studied little bit of the history of the Reserve Bank of India, then the general banking history, and this is relating to Indian banking history. We studied about the Imperial Bank, correct? Like this points if you make, it will form like a story, because when you study on your own it seems never ending and very difficult to understand. After that we studied the structure, and this is right from the topmost, which is Central Board of Directors, and they will be above the governor. So RBI governor is the highest authority except the Central Board of Directors. So nobody is going to question the RBI governor except Central Board of Directors. They can question the RBI governor. And the lowest is the support staff. So all these people are there. Then we studied the Central Board of Directors, that is below Central Board of Directors is who? Our governor of RBI, correct? Then we have the concept of local board of the RBI, and this is for our 4 regions of India, correct? India is a huge country. Now we come to RBI Acts, its function and the banking awareness. Acts governing specific functions. So we need to know that apart from the Reserve Bank of India Act, which we call as in short RBI Act, there are some other acts we should know. that is the Public Debt Act, Government Securities Act, and we have the Securities Contract Act, then Indian Coinage Act, Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, Foreign Exchange Management Act, which is our FEMA. Then we have our Governs Trade and Foreign Exchange Market, that is relating to FEMA. Then we have the Payments and Settlement Act, correct? This is all our Paytm etc. has come because of this act, Payment and Settlement Act. Our NEFT, RTGS, all these things are covered under this act, which is payment system in India, all the online payments. So please remember, these are the acts you should know. So apart from RBI, you should know another 7 acts primarily, and connected with that. So this we call as the connected acts. Primary acts are the 7 over here. Connected acts, we have the Companies Act, then we have the Banking Companies Acquisition and Undertakings Act, Bankers Book Evidence Act, we have the Banking Secrecy Act, Negotiable Instruments Act. Further, we have the State Bank of India Act, then we have the Industrial Development Bank Act, then Industrial Finance Corporation Act. You don't have to know all these acts. National Bank for Agriculture, what we call in short as NABARD, correct? It is very important even when we study producer company in company law. National Housing Bank Act, Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation. We have the RBI Act, which we call as the Umbrella Act. Along with that, the Banking Regulation Act. So please don't forget these 2 things primarily, which we call them as Umbrella Act. That is, below this only everything will come. The Reserve Bank of India Act 1934 and the Banking Regulation Act. Okay, if these 2 things are there, which is the 1949 law, all other things are below this. So don't worry to study all these things, but you should know Companies Act and Bankers Book Evidence Act, Banking Secrecy Act, Negotiable Instruments Act, you should know. And these acts also you should know, and this is common sense. FEMA, then we have the Securities Contract Act. These are the acts which govern RBI. So when we study RBI, we are trying to study the whole picture of what is the RBI and the other related laws connected to it. So primarily we have RBI, and I told you we have the Umbrella Acts, which is the 2 main acts. So first is this, we'll put Roman number, second is this. So below this, all these acts over here we will study. Now we come to functions of the Reserve Bank of India.